Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Thursday. Let's see what the date is. September 12th, and Notre Dame's got a matchup coming up on the road in West Lafayette against the Purdue Boilermakers. We're going to talk about that. We're going to preview that. Marcus Freeman is talking to the media now. Obviously, he's fielding questions about the quarterback position. We're going to touch on that in just a second, and then we're gonna make some predictions at the end. We're gonna talk about how the offense is gonna deal with Purdue's pressure, their man coverage, whether or not we can count on them to score points, and how Notre Dame's defense is going to adjust to a major difference in styles. Right? Purdue will have one tight end on the field at once, but they are going to spread it out. They're going to try to throw the ball, which fits into how kind of Notre Dame is built defensively. So we'll talk about that, get to viewer comments and questions in the chat. As always, this show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing. It's almost game time. ESQ has finally restocked all their bamboo dress shirts online. You've seen them all, your favorite players and coaches, and made from proprietary fabric that's cooler and softer than cotton. It's the best shirt for any occasion. Go to esqclothing.com. Use ISD15 to get 15% off your order. ISD15 to get 15% off your order. As always, if you like what you hear today, please hit the like, please hit subscribe, please hit the notification bell soon whenever it is we're going live. Links to the podcast, as always, are in the description below. What a week, Jamie. What a week we just had. Man, I tell you, last week I was talking to some people. Has there been a bigger vibe shift in like recent memory than the one that Notre Dame just went through? I mean, that things were so optimistic and so high after Texas A&M, and now I just feel like it's the polar opposite. Do you remember anything as kind of knee jerky as this?
No, I can't remember one that that swung quite this far. Like, not anything this far, but
yeah.
I mean, certainly there was. I would say the losing to Florida State in 2014, and the way that it wasn't like people felt good about it, but I think people thought, "Hey, Notre Dame's close." That's what people thought.
Yeah.
And then that was like the steady decline of
that
season. Was pretty jarring or whatever, but like I can't really remember it going like that, because it's like if you look at, say, 2016, there was a lot of positive energy even coming out of losing in overtime to Texas at the beginning of the season. Because Kaiser played so well in that game, and EQ had a great game. Like CJ Sanders had a great game in that game, and Josh Adams played. Like there was a lot of positives there, and then I mean it went down, but it was like that was a loss. It wasn't the same as like, hey, it's like people think, hey, you got over the hump, and then no, there's still room. Like there's still a lot of work to be done.
Still a lot of work to be done. And on that front, that Marcus Freeman is meeting with the media now. He said no roles have changed. This is regarding the quarterback position. No roles have changed. Leonard has had a good week of practice. Other quarterbacks have done a great job, but no changes to reps in practice from previous weeks. It says, despite reports elsewhere. I don't know if that's a Marcus Freeman quote or if that's I don't know what's been reported, so I'm not sure about that. But
I think he talked about the injury report.
Okay. Oh, got you. Get the injury report. Okay. So it seems to be Marcus Freeman is indicating that the reps are unchanged and that Riley Leonard is going to be the starting quarterback. I think from an injury standpoint, I'm kind of in the camp that I think the injury has been a little bit overrated in terms of the effect it has on Riley Leonard's performance. I think his performance stands alone, such as it is, right? I think if they want to run him, I think they can run him. I think that whatever they need to, he's not limited by whatever injury he has or whatever ailments he has. Which isn't to say like, he's obviously hasn't played very well, right? Like we covered that very extensively on the show. But like I don't view the injury as like, oh, like they're not going to be, if they want to run him, they can run him, in my opinion. Kind of where do you come out on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were, just chatting offline too about like whatever. I talked to my wife who's, she's a physiotherapist, and you talked to a friend of yours who's a surgeon or whatever, and we were just, I asking them about the specific injury, and my wife basically said like it was not even without a hesitation. It was like, oh, he's fine, he can play, like he's fine, he can play. And I'm like, well, will he have to get a shot before? Probably not.
Yeah,
probably not. And it's like, well, the only thing he wouldn't be able to do is like extend with his arm. And like if he like fell and he had to like put his hand down, he's not stiff arming anyone with his left hand.
Yeah.
Put it that way. But that's about the extent of it. Like he can't get it overextended, but it's not like something that requires surgery. And I don't know, like it shouldn't be a hindrance in running him.
Yeah.
Which I think is very positive. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's good for what Notre Dame needs to do, because Purdue's been hurt. I was reading your part of your 6 thoughts on a Thursday. And not just that, but it's essential to Riley Leonard's success as well, and all their victories, or in most of the big victories he's had. He had at Duke, like he was a running threat. He was obviously a running threat in Notre Dame's victory against Texas A&M. So that's a big part of his game. Purdue has been hurt in the past by mobile quarterbacks. And the thing is like, if they're a team that's going to blitz a lot and they're going to play a lot of man, then that means if you can get by the line, you've got a bunch of players with their back turned to the quarterback. That's a good situation for your quarterback who's going to be running the ball. So that's something that I think, Notre Dame's going to have to try to take advantage of. And let's just get into how they can take advantage of what Purdue is doing. You mentioned before, they love to stack the box and force you to throw. They play the most man coverage of any team in college football. I think you said it was 70% man that they're playing in the back. Yeah, so you can count on them playing man coverage. They're going to challenge the wide receivers for Notre Dame. To be honest, that's a little bit concerning to me from a standpoint of I don't see Notre Dame getting away from a lot of man coverage looks, right? Aside from Bo Collins, I think he's been kind of the star for Notre Dame on that front at wide receiver. Haven't seen a ton of that from Chris Mitchell. Have seen a little bit from Jaden Greathouse. We've seen him do it in the past. He was good at this last year. It's interesting. I wish there was a little bit more color from Marcus Freeman on Jordan Faison, because I feel like this would be a pretty big game for him on that front. What have you seen on film that is either A, encouraging for you on Notre Dame passing against man, or what's the concern level if you're not encouraged there?
Well, I mean, I think like if you look at like Mitchell last year, he was a guy who beat man a lot deep. Like he had a lot of big plays deep. He averaged over 20 yards a catch versus man last year. He, caught a ton of deep balls and was like one of the best deep ball receivers in college football last year. That's kind of why they got him. Like that's one of the reasons they got him, because he's a speed guy. Obviously, it's more of a question about like Riley Leonard making those throws to like the field receiver and getting that, like, and doing that. And, kind of like something that Mike Denbrock said on Tuesday, it's like, well, maybe that, you got to make the calls that are best for him too, right? That are best for Leonard. But that also maybe means where Denbrock, maybe you got to move a guy like Chris Mitchell around and try to find a matchup, right? Try to get there. Faison definitely is like, I mean, he was awesome against man last year. He was caught 9 of 10 targets, average over 15 yards a catch, caught 3 touchdowns. Like for the purpose of anyone who had 25 plus targets in this year. And I understand 25 is not a lot, but he only played like the back, more than the back quarter of the year, whatever, right? But like the back third of the year, basically, he was the best in man out of everyone. in FBS last year. So like, I realize a small sample size, but I mean, 9 out of 10 targets and like basically killing guys is pretty darn good. And it wasn't like he just did it in that Oregon State game. Like,
Yeah.
he beat, Brownlee from Louisville, who's like 5th round pick. Like he probably their best corner, right? Like that's not nothing, right? So I think that's, if he's healthy, depending on, his health, but if he's good, which it has been 2 weeks. So Marcus Freeman did say 1 to 2 weeks, right? So this will be 2 weeks since the injury. If he's good, then he's got to be a guy who's targeted in this game, right? And then, like you mentioned, Collins. The whole point of getting some of these guys and like having Faison and Greathouse, whatever, is like you should have guys who can win more in man coverage. So I think they're going to be okay receiver wise. And the other thing is that Purdue, they're going to play this way, but they don't have top corners. They don't have Ben Morrison and Christian Gray, right? Like they don't have the guys that Walters had at Illinois, right? They have an outstanding safety that Dylan Thieneman is like a stud. He's awesome. But as far as their outside corners, one's a true freshman. So obviously he was a 4-star, right? But he reclassified from 2025 to 2024. And I mean, I don't care if you are, who you are, is, what your ranking was and how talented you are. And he is a talented athlete, but like, he's a true freshman. Like they should go at it. They should go at him. The guy who's coming back, Markevius Brown, who's a returning starter, he wasn't good last year. That was one of the reasons why they were 126 in giving up passing plays with 20 plus yards. And then their nickel is a guy who transferred. He went to Ole Miss for a year, went to Colorado for a year, didn't play that much, played about 100 snaps, and he's playing nickel for the first time in his career. So those are the guys you're probably going to have to go against in man a lot. Like they should attack those guys. They should be able to attack them, and there should be matchups there. And not to mention that they're not good at linebacker. Like they moved Keedron Jenkins, who was a really, really good edge rusher for them. He's like an undersized edge rusher. He's like 6'1", 250 type, right? And he actually had more pressures than Nick Scordon last year. Like he was big time, but I think they moved him partially because he's going to probably, if he wants to play in the NFL, he's got to play linebacker.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that they don't have anybody at linebacker. Like they need help at linebacker. So he's starting and he's going to blitz and all that too, but there's going to be times when he's in coverage. And if you can get him matched up on like a Love or a Price or whoever, like that's something you got to try to take. This guy just played edge last year. How good is he? I don't think he's going to be that good in coverage. And then Yanni Karloftis is the other starter. He's been bad in coverage. And I'm like, not to just like throw it back because this is many years ago, but I remember watching him at a Nike camp in Canton.
Oh, wow.
And I remember him like this is many years ago. Like Blake Fisher was there as like a rising junior or whatever. But I remember Yanni Karloftis being like, because he was George Karloftis' brother. So everybody was like, oh, hey, Yanni. And I think he had a Notre Dame offer. And I just remember him like, man, this guy got beat a lot in coverage. And it's kind of continued for him. Like that, I don't think is his strength. He's another guy who's kind of like a tweener. Maybe should be like an edge, but he's not big enough. So he's not as big as his brother. So he's the other starting linebacker. And then the guy they played last week, like, is just a guy. He's not great. So I think there are areas that they can attack. Like, they have questions across the board, right? Like, and then up front too, like they have questions like on the defensive line. I don't know how good their defensive tackles are. Like the guys who played last year weren't that good. The guys who played last year weren't that good. They have a couple other guys that could, help them, but they're not like, you can't judge it based off Indiana State, right? You can't judge it based off Indiana State. And they lost Gordon and Jenkins off the edge. I think Will Helt, who's, one of their young, he's a young passer, true sophomore. Like, he's long, super athletic, he had 2 sacks in the opener, but like they were like, he looks great getting off the ball. I don't want to say like physically he looks great, but they were like busts. They were bad plays by the Indiana State O-line. So I don't know how good of he, like, he's not Nick Gordon, like there's no evidence to suggest that. So I don't know. They got a lot of questions on their defense. Ryan Walters had a lot of great defenses, coached a lot of great defenses, but man, I don't know. Like, this feels like a matchup where it's like, you should be able to put up points like this based on who you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame should score a lot in this game. Like, they absolutely should.
Yeah. Emily 101 with a pretty good point here. Freeman said Leonard would be playing and didn't specify starting. Neil Ivey always keeps tight-lipped about injuries and whether people would be playing. I don't think it should be an announcement. I think to this point, like, if Steve Angeli ran out there on Saturday, I would not be shocked. Like, just because you never know. Like, I have no idea. Like, whatever he's all we're doing is reporting what Marcus Freeman said.
For Notre Dame to be like Steve Angeli's the starter and tell.
Yeah. Like, honestly, anything could be true. Anything should be true. So I remain open-minded to all of that stuff. So that's a good point. PQ, what it do? Why did they run such little play action? Feels like deja vu from last season. Do they not trust the protection to hold that long? I mean, I'll just go to Occam's razor without any other information and say they aren't very good at it in practice. And you're going to tell me, like, or someone might say, well, they're not good at the other stuff either. It's like, yeah, but they're only going to run what they think they can be successful with. If they don't think they can be successful with play action, they won't run it. I want them to, right? So you don't have to tell me that they should do it more. I think they should be a heavier play action team. I think in this particular game, if Purdue is bringing a ton of pressure and they're playing a ton of man, I don't think you need to do play action in this one. I think that, and the good thing about a team that plays a bunch of man is it's a lot easier usually to get your quarterback to identify where he wants to go with the ball and go with it. I think zone is a little bit trickier in that you do have to go through your reads and you do like, this is my primary. They covered it. I have to start scanning the field now. That's why a lot of teams are effective at zone, right? That's why Notre Dame plays a lot of man.
Yeah.
Notre Dame plays a lot of man, but they also do kind of, they are in zone a bit with their safeties and other parts of their team. So, or parts of the defense. So that's why Notre Dame's so effective. That's why Notre Dame's so effective.
It's not like cover zero each time.
Yeah. So I think on that front, it should be, like you said, there are opportunities here that Notre Dame should be able to take advantage of. The throw has to be accurate. The read has to be accurate. The catch has to be made, right? I'd like for them to get Jaden Thomas more involved. I like him as a physical player, as someone who has won one-on-one matchups in the past, as someone who is a good contested catch guy. Like I'd like them to activate him a little bit more in this game. I don't want it at the expense of Bo Collins, and frankly, there's no reason to think that it will be at the expense of Bo Collins. I think it would have to be at the expense of Chris Mitchell and or Jaden Greathouse. But I like him in this game. I like Jaden Harrison in this game, right? Getting a step on somebody and them, getting a step on someone, getting him out into space with someone in man coverage. Win Carmody, thank you for this super chat. Leonard starts, but we play multiple QBs. Okay, we'll mark that down as a prediction from you. Let's see. Win Carmody, another one. Thank you for the other super chat here. Intel on team dynamic issues pre or post loss. Matt posted an update that I guess it was Tuesday.
After Tuesday, yeah.
After Tuesday's practice, that things were chippy. That their people are
spirited. Yeah.
Spirited. A lot of kerfuffles. A lot of melees. No, I don't want to say melee. That's not the right one. A lot of things going on, right? Some pushing and shoving in practice.
Guys are angry, and they should be.
Yeah. So there's that, right? And look, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. I don't look to that sort of thing to give me any sort of indicator. They got to play better, right? That's just the deal. They got to play better, especially on offense. Kenneth or Joe Marciano mentions crossers and mesh routes this week. Absolutely. I think that's a good time for that. Let's see, Jason Z with a question here. What would you want to see in the first couple offensive drives to feel like the issues seem to be getting addressed, even if there are some punts? So what are you looking for, Jamie? Among the things that have been an issue for Notre Dame that have been well documented, what do you want to see? Obviously touchdowns, right? But among those things, even if let's say Notre Dame has to, this is a better way to put it. Notre Dame on their first two drives, let's say they don't score. What would you be looking for to say they haven't scored on these first two possessions, but
there was like positive.
There was something there. What would you be looking for?
I think Leonard throwing in rhythm and like being accurate in rhythm, just like looking good, looking comfortable. I don't think they're really, even if you look at the first drive, he didn't look comfortable really in the pocket at any point in that game. I actually thought he looked, against Northern Illinois. I didn't think he looked, I thought he looked more comfortable against Texas A&M, which is like, you wouldn't think, but that's what it was. That's how you perceived it. And I would say him running, like showing that he runs, and then it's like, he's good. Like he's fine. Like he ran and took advantage of that. I think that's important. Like, I think that Notre Dame is like attacking them. Like they're not like being like, it's man coverage. And like, yes, crossers. Yes, of course. Right. Like, of course, that kind of stuff. But like, I mean, don't not throw a slot fade to Jane Greathouse because he dropped one last week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, go back at it. Like, do that kind of thing. Like, because you have to be explosive in the passing game. So I think just having more, just Leonard being able to complete something intermediate, deep, throwing a rhythm, accuracy, that kind of stuff. And sometimes you get that, and then it's like, hey, the drive stalls because, whatever reason, right? An old lineman gets beat. This is what happens. Something stumbles, whatever. You get penalty, something, whatever. You obviously don't want that to happen, but if there are things there that you're like, they can come out of it, and Leonard feels good, and the team feels good about Leonard after. I think that to me is 100% the key. Go like at the start. And I think too, like, as much as you want to get points to not get, the Purdue crowd into it, I just think, just getting first downs, and just like flipping the field. So then it's just like, hey, they're pinned. They got to drive a long way. Like that's what I really want to see.
Yeah, like make them, for sure, make them do that. I think for me, it's like, is Notre Dame getting their guys open? Is for me, because even if Leonard is missing them, you can fix that, right? Like you can fix because then you can just put in someone else, Like I think my biggest concern about this offense, period, is like, I don't see that they are consistently getting guys open enough to where it's like, oh, someone else. Like I remember in the 2011 season when they started with Dane Christ, because that's kind of like the vibe I'm kind of getting so far right now. Is like Dane Christ, man, like he was mobile, especially in 2010. Like he was mobile, and he had a big arm and all those other things, but you just couldn't count on him to hit the guys that were open. In 2010 and the start of 2011, like, man, it's just, they're open, you're missing them. Like, you keep missing them. Then they went with Tommy Rees, and the offense started to get a lot better, right? And so, like, for me, I just want to see that those guys can get open. And I feel like that's something they can do going forward. Because, like, if not, like, yeah, maybe you need to make a change at quarterback. I don't know. But, man, like, it can't be a struggle bus getting these guys open all the time. Because that's just not going to work. It won't work against any team. And it, like, doesn't help the running game either. Something I think really needs to come out of this game is, look, obviously there's a game flow situation that needs to be handled, and it always needs to be handled. I'd like an emphasis on your two best players on offense right now, which is the two running backs. I just like to see that they're deciding, like, we are going to build our offense around these two guys. Because it just can't be. Because right now it's so quarterback centric, you know, just in the way that they've formed the offense, right? I just think put it on those two guys and let's let Notre Dame go with them. Like, because I just think that's the best part of that's just the best part of their team so far. Jamie, they have, so I was looking at it. They have 21 like true drives so far, which is like they want to score a touchdown. Like some of them are like, you know, like the last drive.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not counting that. 21 true drives. They have 4 touchdowns on the year. They have 2 red zone trips, right? You could say 4 because, you know, you enter the red zone when you're running in from 47 yards or 34 yards or whatever it is. But like they have 2 red zone.
Yeah, you wouldn't count it. Yeah.
Yeah, but you have 2 red zone trips in 21 real drives. You're not moving the ball at all, right? No. That's another thing. It'd be one thing if like, oh, we're failing in the red zone and then we're missing field goals, right? And that's what the coaches are saying. Like, we're blowing these drives. That's not really happening. Like they're not when they're not, you know, scoring, they're not moving the ball at all. And that is obviously a big problem for them. And so it's hard to go, you know, to predict a game where it's like, yeah, they're going to score 38 points in this game. Like I just can't predict that. Right. Like I can't go into it saying this is where I think the score is going to be.
It could be possible, but you can't do it just based on what you've seen, you know, so far. Like it would just be impossible to do that. And like put it this way too, like the offense, I just looked it up. It was like, so 17 and a half first downs per game right now is 99th in the country. That's not enough.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
It's not enough. And obviously you're not, if the red zone trips were low, because you're like, man, these guys are just scoring 60-yard touchdowns.
You're right.
Obviously you're looking at it.
Like you only bring it up in the context if they have 4 touchdowns total, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think that like 100%, like, I don't know, you know, what you want to do with, you know, we kind of talked about like, you know, someone brought up here about 21 personnel. We kind of brought up about like the 21 personnel, you know, that would be something, but I mean, I don't know if we'll see that or not, but like, how about like just more of like the love in the slot running? I know that wasn't a great route, but how about him in the slot doing something like that, where it's like, we're going to get him matched up in the slot and run a go or something or whatever, you know, like we're going to do that. We're going to run, you know, instead of just running like a, you know, the little swing screen to those guys where the receivers haven't blocked well, like, how about we're just running a slant to one of those guys? How about we're running like an angle route? How about we're running a wheel? How about we're just doing something else other than that, just to get those guys a little bit more involved? And like, it's not hard to throw an angle route. You know what I mean? Like that should be like a gimme throw that, and that's another way too, to get them. You go against these linebackers and you get them in, you know, you get them in coverage, and it's like, cover this. Like,
it's also major college football. Throw an angle route.
Yes,
it's going to work. You know, we're trying to be like a real team. Like you're talking, you want to be a playoff team, you need to hit an angle route. You know, like NIU, they ask the quarterback to make throws. Like, you got to make throws. Like, it can't just be simple, easy stuff all the time. And to the point you made about getting Jeremiah Love out, split out or whatever, 21 personnel, he's a good enough receiver. He's good enough in the slot out there where it's like you can be in 11 and still be in 21. You know what I'm saying? Like you can act like you're in 11 personnel or 10 personnel if you want with 2 running backs out there, like, and just put one of them in the slot. Like that's how you create matchups. And I think this is a game where I'm interested to see, because you talked about it all offseason about Mike Denbrock's ability to find matchups that are favorable to Notre Dame. Someone asked the question about tight ends. I think it was Chris Schreiber. Go back and look for it. About how, they haven't really gotten the tight ends involved. Because Mitchell Evans hasn't been featured as much. This would be a good game for him as well. If you're going to get him in a bunch of man coverage, that would be good. If his plays, his snap count ramped up, that'll be good for him. But he hasn't been involved as much. They used Cooper Flammang a couple. He had a couple catches in the A&M game, not so much in this game. But as we kind of mentioned before, when you got a bunch of 3 and outs in there, or 4 and outs, or 5 and outs, or whatever it is, you're not getting touches for really anybody.
You're not getting deep into the playbook.
Yeah. You're not getting touches for anyone because you're not moving the ball on the first 3 drives there. Let's see. Chris Schreiber says, I guess we can transition to the defense here a little bit. Another site that he respects said that Mills hasn't performed because there isn't a 100% cross next to him. Feel like that is an indictment on Mills of not being the guy, but just a guy.
Okay. No disrespect to this other site or whatever, which I'm sure I probably respect too. But that has nothing to do with Mills not performing.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with that. It's not like he's getting doubles. He's getting doubled now that they're like, oh, Cross isn't anything to worry about. No. I watched the film. Like, Cross is getting doubled all the time still, right? And he is going to get it more when he's lined up as in the nose and stuff like that too, right? And Mills has looked good rushing the passer. Like he's gotten some pressure and he's made some impact there. He just, it's funny because I was like listening to, can't remember who it was. It might've been Herb Street in the first game or something, or somebody was talking about it. And they were like, Riley Mills is known more for, being strong against the run. And I was like, that's not what he's known for. Like, he is known as more of like, he's a much better pass rusher than he is versus the run. But the thing is and that is of more value to the NFL. So that is like a good thing for him in a lot of ways, but he's got to be better at playing the run consistently. Like, you wanted to see him take a step where it's like, man, he's dominating. Like, he's disrupting, and he's had flashes of that. Mm-hmm. Like, he's had some plays where you're like, oh, the guy made the play because he kind of blew it up. And that's fair. But if anything, like, because, Cross maybe isn't 100%, like, he's got to be at another level. Like, he's got to be at another level and playing at a higher level. And he just hasn't done that. I don't think he's played bad necessarily. He hasn't played bad, but he's definitely hasn't taken a step so far in these 2 games to suggest that, like, he's better than he was last year. That we just haven't seen that yet. So, now would be as good a time as any. Like, they need a guy like him to have a game where it's like, man, this is a Riley Mills game or something like that. They need that. They absolutely need that, especially because, if you look at like where they're at on the defensive line, like, Cross, if Cross isn't 100% or whatever, he's still the most impactful guy. He's been the most impactful guy. Like, just there, like, he has plays where he takes over. And it's like that isn't there with the other guys as much. I mean, probably the closest is probably Botello.
Yeah.
Who's played well to start the season. And I mean, I actually thought I don't know how healthy he's going to be. And I don't know how healthy he's going to be, or for this game, but I saw a lot in that game that I'm like, oh man, like, yeah, he is rising. Like he's going to be, I think he's going to be good, but this is a perfect chance for RJ Oben.
Yeah.
Because they are going to throw, they want to throw it more. So he's going to get a chance to rush the passer. Like, take advantage of this opportunity. Like, take advantage of it. Like, get after it. And I'm sure his confidence isn't very high right now. He played
How could it
plays.
be? Yeah. I mean, he hasn't
11
made plays and they reduced his snap count, right? I mean, that's the least confidence inducing thing you can do, which is not to say they need to be concerned about his confidence per se, but he can't be confident. Yeah. I've look, I've always been kind of skeptical of Riley Mills and just the kind of impact that he can have on a game-to-game basis. And like this notion that he needs Howard Cross to be like, you're a captain. I'm sorry. Like, you're a captain. That can't happen. Like, you can't just be, you're not allowed. And this is where, like, people talk about accountability, right? When you have the captain, when you have the C, like, you don't get to just be a guy out there.
Yeah.
You don't get to. You have to be the best guy. You have to be the reason that you are winning games. That is what that is. Like XYs. Like, he is always on. He is never off, ever. Like, that is taking accountability. Like, you can't, and this goes for like Riley Leonard too. Like, it goes for all of the guys with the C. Like, even Jack Kaiser to an extent, right? Like, you can't just be a guy who like made the tackle 8 yards down the field or whatever. Like, look, you got to be a playmaker, man. You can't just be a guy who like, oh man, he stalemated the line on that outside zone. Like, no, you need to get upfield and you need to create havoc. You put it out in your 6 thoughts today. Notre Dame's havoc rate isn't very good. It's not very good. And like, you're a havoc player on the interior D line. You got to bring it. You have to absolutely bring it more than that. I don't accept like this. He needs Cross next to him to be 100%. Like, I don't accept that.
No, that's not.
Like, you lift up your teammate. He's not 100%. You lift him up instead of the other way around. That's how it works.
I just because some people, you don't have to bring it up, but I saw people like, and I'm probably at fault because I brought up the like, hey, they're 17.5 first downs is 99th. The rankings for like where everyone is at in the thing after 2 weeks is garbage. Do not pay attention.
It's irrelevant. Yeah.
Any of it. And I, whatever. And I even know too, like the analytics people are out there kind of being like, well, this is EPA per rush right now. This is whatever. I'm like, some of these guys have played nobody. Like, it really, like, honestly, like you can't judge it based on whatever, because Purdue had played Indiana State and had a bye. Notre Dame's had 2 games, right? Notre Dame's had 2 games against, regardless of whatever you think of NIU, it's better than a bye in Indiana State. You know what I mean? Like, so you can't take the rankings of anything right now, because if you look at like where they are just in terms of like where they'd fit in rankings over the course of a season, it's not nearly as bad as anyone would think. And also there's going to be games mixed in where it's like the Havoc ranking, and I wrote about it in 6 thoughts. Like, it looks bad right now because it's like, well, they're at like 11 something percent, and they were like 19.4% last year. They're 15th in the country. Like, obviously you want to be top 15. Like, it's important. And actually it's like one of those things that, like, in terms of winning championships, like, I think like 8 out of the last 10 champions were like top 15. and have great. So it does matter. It absolutely does matter. But I think the number is going to go up, and kind of like what we said too about you briefly mentioned, but we can kind of try to transition to this too, is this is the first time they're going to play a team that it's like what they want to do doesn't mesh well against Notre Dame's defense. Like that's a bad matchup for them. Yeah. Like if teams want to throw it on Notre Dame most of the time, they're not going to be as successful. Like that's just, what it is. There's a reason why, NIU ran play action a million times and whatever. Like this team is going to, drop back, and they're going to RPO, and they're going to do stuff. They're going to spread the field and whatever, but they're going to try to throw the ball a lot. Like in the opener, when Card was in the game, they threw it 65% of the time. And when Graham Harrell was at USC, they're top 10 in pass play rate. Like they're 60% pass. Last year, they were higher run, but that was a lot because they didn't have the receivers. And they do have better receivers this year. And there should be some good matchups. I think they'll have some guys who can make some plays in the game. Like they got some big bodies, some guys who will go up and get it. But I do think it's an opportunity for Notre Dame's pass rush to get going. It's an opportunity for guys like Ben Morrison, Watts, Gray, Schuler after kind of a rough game, Rod Hurd, Jordan Clark, like to make plays. And those are the guys who have made plays, really so far. So, I mean, I don't think it was like, that wasn't an overreaction to say like, hey, Notre Dame secondary is like elite. Like it's still there. And if that's what they're going to do, I don't think that's going to work out great for them, especially because Card, when pressured, was like really bad last year. And he was pressured a lot. He was pressured like 40% of the time. Their line was bad. They've added in some transfers. They've shifted some guys around, and we'll see how that is. Like they haven't had, this will be the second starting combination because their left tackle was out in week one. Corey Stewart, who's a Ball State transfer, who was all MAC, like he was a good player in the MAC, but this would be the first game where all those guys play together. And generally, kind of like how it was with A&M, that's not a good thing going against some of the pressure stuff Notre Dame's going to present to them and all that. And I think that's something to watch, because if Purdue's line isn't good again, then I think they're going to really, because I don't see them running that well. And then if they don't run that well, man, I don't know. Like, I don't think Purdue is going to, I think they'll struggle.
Yeah, they definitely play in the way that Notre Dame is designed to stop teams, right? Like NIU completely de-emphasized Jordan Clark. They completely de-emphasized Christian Gray. I mean, two guys Notre Dame wants on the field all the time, and so I think that is just like that. That was to their. Here's the other part, man. Like the Notre Dame linebackers, that game was meant to be. And Brendan McElinden of 1 Foot Down. I was talking to him about this. Like that game was meant to be like a learning experience for those young players in a 35-9 win.
Yeah.
That's what that game was meant to be. We look back on it and we say, man, like these linebackers, like they got baptized a little bit because they played a team that is just running at them all the time. And, the fits were not as good. They weren't as aggressive. They got guys running at them in their face all the time. Like they made some plays. There was some good stuff, but there was also some really bad things. They got to learn from this. We move on, right? That's what that game was meant to be. Not this happened and you lost 16-14. And look, I cannot emphasize enough how much of an accident that touchdown was. The only touchdown of the game. A complete accident. He is not throwing it to the person who scored. The person who scored isn't even running the right route. He is meant to run a slant. And KVA jams him. And so then he tries to run around. He did the completely wrong thing. You have two guys standing next to themselves. And the ball just lands in his hands. Ben Morrison's going to intercept it because it's throwing it to his guy, right? Like, it's a complete fluke. Like, it's an accident, right? So I just, like, I break down plays on the internet, Jamie. I didn't break that one down because there's nothing to take from it. It's just a fluke play, accident. No one did anything really wrong there. So it kind of is what it is. I don't want people like, we banged on the linebackers on the last show. I don't want people to take that from like, well, they're all of a sudden just like no good, bad. Okay. And so I'm not projecting that forward. Look, it's possible that the Purdue gets over on them throwing the ball. It is possible, right? It absolutely is. Anything's possible, as we've seen. The thing that worries me is Card can run, man. He's very nimble. If he gets outside the pocket, if they are losing their rushing lanes, if they are losing contain, he can hurt them. And it doesn't matter how much you cover. Notre Dame's the same kind of way. They play a lot of man coverage. If they've got a bunch of backs turned and you're losing contain and he's moving the chains that way, right? Then you can find yourself in in some bad situations. But like you have to like the matchup, right? Notre Dame has only had a couple touchdowns scored on them this year. One was, like we said, a fluke play. Another one was, a good drive by Texas A&M, who ran at them, right? Who went heavy and ran at them, right? So that's just not something that's in Purdue's bag. But I don't know. I can't. If Purdue was to win, I don't know that it would take a bunch of points. Like a fluke touchdown.
Yeah, that's the thing. You don't know how many points it's going to take. And I will say, so I'll just reiterate again, too, that Purdue has some talented skill guys. Like the tight end, Max Clare, is very good. He's really good. Like, he's going to be like a matchup problem. Like, very good athlete. Very good athlete. Yeah. Like, to me, he looks like, and I know it was Indiana State or whatever that I watched most of him. Like, he played 5 games last year, 22 catches, like pretty good as a true freshman, but like he looks like he is going to be like probably one of the best tight ends in the Big Ten. I really liked his game. I think he's good. They've got big receivers that can go up and get it. So, when you throw enough 50-50 balls, you're gonna be able to do it. And you know what, too? They could run it, a decent amount. Like, Notre Dame still got to prove. That's the thing. They could come out and try to throw it a lot, and then it's not working, and then all of a sudden it is working with the run because Notre Dame's linebackers aren't that good. But I also, in the game, like, not that they're not that good, but like, I also think too, this is something where everything worked in the first game, where it was like, you're playing all these 5 guys, and basically all 5 guys played well, right? Mm-hmm. And that wasn't the case last week. So I do wonder if they're gonna, if this is a week where you're like, these guys are gonna play a little bit more than others here. Like, that, I mean, to me, that's something that I would, monitor there. Like, whether or not they're going to kind of mix that up a bit, whether or not Max Bull and Al Golden will mix that up a bit. Cause I do think that's, that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah. I would say, just because he's the oldest one, I have a little bit more concern about Jalen Sneed being more than a sub package guy. I thought this was
he was not good in this game.
I thought he was, of all of them, I thought he was kind of the roughest one. But like this game allows him to be sub package. Everyone's talking about Osbury in the chat.
I think he's like a spread linebacker though, right? So that's the thing. He's like he's a space backer. He's a guy that, even if he's the inside linebacker, but it's like, if they're in, 11 and then they're all spread out, like, that suits him. Like, I mean, I know everyone, I see the comments too of just everybody's like, man, this team isn't good or whatever. It's like, well, that's not what I didn't see any of these people writing this after the first week, or this defense, this, whatever. Like, so, and they gave up 16 points. I'm not saying they didn't play up to their capabilities. They needed to play better. There was definitely guys who didn't play well, but like, there's no reason to think that the defense isn't still great. Like there really isn't. There really isn't, and that they won't like come out. I would be shocked if they don't play great this week. I frankly would be shocked, because I just think there's not only that they have the talent or whatever, there are too many guys like Cross, Watts, Kaiser, and even Mills too, to be like, hey, Mills, kind of know you got to step up your game. Like all of these kind of things where that's something that there's a lot of value in that, in having that, right? And the fact that the guys went on the road and like played really well on the road already, right? And so I think that's important. Like, and let's face it, this is like, it's very similar stakes to the Texas A&M game, where you feel like, wow, if we lose this game, all this guy, it's just right back at it again, right? So I don't know. I think the defense is going to be awesome in this game. I would be shocked if they weren't awesome in this game.
It would be nice if Notre Dame was able to come out and put up some points right away, and just kind of settle down everyone. Just like, hey, it's going to be all right. Like we're going to be fine. Okay, we're good. Go play football. Because if you got a bunch of 3-and-outs there, and it's like, man, all of a sudden every first down that they allow is starting to feel like a failure. Which is what happens when you play an NIU team, right? The longer you go, where it's like, we're not in the lead yet,
Yeah, like playing Navy.
Yeah, it was just like a Navy game. I said that a couple of times. Like, it was just, like, the longer we go, man, we're not winning. Every first down feels like you've given up a point. Like every time you give up a first down, you think, oh God, like we're losing. And it's like, just, it would be good if they could come out and put up some points. It would also be good if you went to VSR Media as your media company. That would be good as well, right? Set yourself up for success that way. Founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadi, VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. What's your prediction, Jamie?
I actually haven't sent it in yet. So, and I'm still kind of debating, what way I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I do think that Notre Dame is going to score some points. It's not going to be like a crazy day. They're not getting rid of everyone's concerns.
Yeah.
In this game. But I'm going to say Notre Dame 27, Purdue 14.
Okay. 27-14. What's the line? Is it 15?
It went down. It's like 11 or something now.
Did it go down?
It went down like whatever. It was
I'm sure the Leonard stuff. I'm sure as soon as
13
it came out,
and then I think the Leonard stuff had a deal with it.
Yeah. I'm gonna say I'm vacillating between 23-17 and 20-17.
You think it's gonna be like that tight, eh? You think it's gonna be?
I do, yeah. I they're gonna have to show me. I can't predict. I can't predict.
Like I'm basically saying though that I should probably point this out, that I think like the defense will like score a touchdown in this game.
Okay.
Like, I think should have probably also mentioned Hudson Card, bottom 10 in interceptable pass rate on deep throws last year, and 10 fumbles.
It's a lot of fumbles.
They're starting running back 8 fumbles. It's a lot of fumbles, guys.
It's a lot.
They were near the bottom in the country in terms of total fumbles, and they like had extreme fumble luck, or else that 4-8 could have been worse, actually. Like, so when guys put the ball on the ground that much, unless it's like a tiki barber, you're holding it up high.
Yeah.
It's hard to remedy. It's like usually like that's a sign that you're not really good at protecting the football. So I think Notre Dame is going to score a defensive touchdown, and that's going to be one of the ways to kind of separate.
Yeah. I'm going to then, given the fumbles, I'm going to say, I was saying 20-17 or 23. I'll say 23. I'll give them one more field goal for that. They're just going to have to show me. I can't, look, they're the type of defense that Purdue plays. Notre Dame has hit explosives this year, and it lends itself to that, right? They're just, I can't predict. They've scored 2 touchdowns in every game this year, and that's what I can only give them that. I just can't give them more until I see it, right?
Fair.
I am not able. I would, because one thing I did, and a huge mistake that I did especially in between games, is I assumed that the explosiveness factor would allow for them to like not have to, and I don't mean like a bunch of 70-yard touchdowns or whatever. Like, I just thought there would be like 20-yard plays and 30-yard plays and 40-yard plays, right? So where it's like, it's not as clean, but you're gashing teams. I assumed that they would be able to hit those types of passes. But like the way Mike Denbrock was talking yesterday about the offense, and I think he was being like honest, because it wasn't really a coach speak thing. And he's kind of talked about this before, and I need to take it a little bit more seriously about how, the interception he threw, he's like, I got to be smarter about giving him something that he can handle in that situation. And for me, it's like, well, I don't know if that was like, should have been too much to handle, but like the fact that he's talking that way makes me think that he expects a slog, that or I don't know about expects, but like, he knows like this could be, we might have to grind these games out early. And like, I think that he has a mindset of they're going to have to show me before I start feeling better about this team. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. We'll see, right? Like it should be a good matchup for them. It really should. But yeah, that's where I come out, Jamie. So, we're going to be on that. We'll be back. Jamie and I will be back after the game on Saturday for an instant reaction show. Hopefully it's a little bit more jovial than it was last week. I'll be back tomorrow on the Friday happy hour show with Frank Vitovich of uhnd.com. I'm going to, my guy, we're going to get the single high boys are going to be back, and we're going to talk about the team and kind of talk about where he's at with everything. I haven't done a pod with him. I don't know what's going on with our pod there, but I'm going to be on with him on this about 4 Eastern time, 1 Pacific time. So look for you then. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please like this show. Please hit the subscribe button, subscribe to this channel, and hit the notification bell so wherever it is, we're going to go live. Look for our site predictions on Friday. Tomorrow, we're going to send those in to Mike Frank. And we'll talk to you soon, everyone. Keep hitting and hustling.